And welcome to episode number 49 of the Between Two Brands podcast. It's the last podcast before Christmas. And I am still your host. And I want to thank you again for joining me. I hope you enjoy this episode. I think it's a really good one. But as always, before we get to our guest, got a few things to do. Let's pay a bill to start off with, shall we? Hey, folks, there is so much awesomeness coming out of Bell Promo these days. I can't even begin to tell you. Here's just a few, though. If I try to tell you, lowest minimums in the industry, yeah, you can Bell Promo that. Deepest inventory around, oh, you can Bell Promo that. 5-star and A+ service, hell yes, you can Bell Promo that. 2-day production on most of their products, you can Bell Promo that. Now, if that weren't enough, and gosh darn it, it should be, the good folks at Bell Promo have a few other things to share. Made in the USA merchandise, yes, you can Bell Promo that as well. How about free shipping on tech and apparel products? Absolutely, you can Bell Promo that. Head over to bellpromo.com to see all their amazing branded merchandise and feel confident that when your clients ask you to create branded merchandise that's available with low minimums, 2-day production, you can tell them, yeah, you can Bell Promo that. All right, for the opening shot today, I started thinking, we are at episode 49, which means we're almost 50. That's the kind of mathematician I am. Call me Pythagoras, if you will. But anyway, did a little bit of a deep dive as I was traveling over the weekend and listened to some of the older podcasts. I don't do that often enough, but I do like to do that occasionally to see what do I like that I'm doing, what would I like to change that I'm doing, because the podcast evolves. It's different from when it was in the beginning. And I thought about this. The original thought behind this podcast was kind of a take off of Zach Galifianakis's I think that said that right. Between Two Ferns. If you haven't seen it, it's very funny and it's intentionally awkward. And I liked that. I softened it up a bit because I'd never want a guest to feel like I'm making fun of them. I'd rather the guest feel like I'm making fun of myself. And so it was fun and it was witty, but it was scripted. And I did unintentionally make some guests feel awkward. That's never my intention to do. And so I started pivoting to more of an interview style. And that really works for guests like Tim Andrews. If you didn't hear that a few episodes ago, that was really great because I wanted to create super thoughtful, super intentional questions. But for the most part, as I've done that with some guests, it still feels a little unnatural. Not maybe not unnatural is the word. It's just not 100% me. And my goal with this podcast is to be 100% authentically me. And I, as we do self-assessments, as I'm sure you all do, I think I'm at my best when I'm thinking on my feet, when I am reacting in the moment. I think that's when I'm the most me that I like, certainly, and that I think people like as well. So moving forward, what I've decided to do, and it'll actually start with episode 51 because I recorded episode 50 a couple days ago because of the holidays. I'm going to provide guests the topics only. And that's all I'm going to prepare for. Here are the 5 things I want to talk to you about. And it might be 1 or 2 words to give people an idea of what I'm going to bring up. But I'm not going to script anything else. I am going to just ask the questions that come to me in the moment. I want to have, instead of interviewing people, I really want to start having conversations. I think that's more interesting. I know it's more natural, and I really think that it's going to result in much better and much more engaging content, not only for you but also for me. So again, I think I'm just much more natural in when I'm conversational, and that's the goal. And that's going to start kind of today with our guests, which we'll get to in just a second. I've been told this by many people, and I take it as a compliment. I do have imposter syndrome like the rest of you, but I think I'm better when I'm a little unscripted, uh, as I referenced a previous podcast. But I do think I'm better when I'm off the cuff and I don't know what's necessarily going to happen. And so we're going to try that out for a little bit. So I thank you guys generally in the beginning of the podcast for taking this content ride with me. And I want to thank you again for as we evolve and get to the podcast that I really want to have with people. I want to thank you again for taking this little content ride with me. All right, before we get to our guest, and I think you're going to really love our guest. Oh, one last thing before I get to that. My goal is with these conversations is always to make the guest shine. I never, ever, ever, ever want anyone to feel anything negative when they stop recording the podcast or listen back to it. I want guests to shine. So I'm still going to do the opening shot. I like this. I like this little 5 to 8 minutes that whatever is on my mind, I get to talk about in the manner of my choosing. But we're going to have more conversations with people rather than a scripted interview. All right, let's pay a quick bill before we get to our guest. Hey, do you know what season it is? Well, of course, it's the holiday season, but it's also business valuation season. Now, perhaps you don't know what your company is worth. Maybe it's been more than a few years since your last valuation, and you need a new benchmark to see if your company is increasing in value. Heck, you might want to see if it's even time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and the experts at Certified Marketing Consultants have extensive experience in the world of promotional products and branded merchandise and the financial knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your business. Simply email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. And heck, you're going to be at PPAI Expo. I know Jamie's going to be there as well. Email her at info@certifiedmarketing.com. Find a time to meet confidentially and see what they can do for you. All right, that's enough of the opening shot today. Let's go ahead and bring on our very special guest, a damn good friend of mine. My guest today probably doesn't need an introduction. I'm saying he definitely doesn't need an introduction, but it's the Friday before Christmas, so I'd like to waste a little bit of your time, my time, and his time. He's been an entrepreneur most of his life, and he loves working at the intersection of technology, branding, and design. Now, to be clear, he has always and continues to believe that that magic really lives at the crossroads of art and science. I love that. I could go on and on about his credentials, but let's just do a little rapid fire on his resume. Founder of Right Sleeve, founder of commonsku, co-founder of Promo Kitchen, and a longtime speaker, writer, and podcaster, also a mentor of mine. As you can see, he's a lot of things to a lot of people. However, to me, he's not just an inspiration, not just a mentor. He's most importantly a friend, and second most importantly, he's the guy that introduced me to the greatness of the tragically hip. Folks, please join me in welcoming the one and only Mark Graham. Mark, long overdue. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Bill, well, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. It's an honor to be here. I know that we've had many content interactions and experiences over the last many, many years. I think you and I have known each other for better part of 15 years, and really excited to be back here. So thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So I said in my little preamble today, my opening shot, that I'm going to make these podcasts a lot more conversational. So in that spirit, Mark and I are just going to have a conversation. We'll see where it goes. I don't know where it's going to go. Mark doesn't know where it's going to go. Okay. One of the things that I've always admired about you, Mark, is the fact that you are, and it even mentioned it in your introduction, you are a serial entrepreneur. How did that journey start? I mean, did you find yourself as restless? And also, I want to know is being an entrepreneur, because you can have an entrepreneurial spirit without having the stomach to being an entrepreneur. Those are two different things. Is being an entrepreneur something that can be taught, or is it something that you're just born with in your mind?
Oh boy. Well, you've asked a lot of really great questions there. So why don't I try to answer them in order? So I think you started off by asking about my particular experience with entrepreneurship, and
Correct.
I I was the classic lemonade stand kid growing up. Um, I would sell lemonade literally in front of my parents' house. I would, because I live in Canada, in Toronto, we get snow, many months of the year. And I had a snow shoveling business. And when I was like 10 years old, I recognized that there was an opportunity to go around, bang on people's doors in my neighborhood and earn money. And I thought that was like really cool. Like no boss, 100% agency on my side that I could go and make opportunities happen. And I had business mentors in my family. I had grandparents that were entrepreneurs. I had an uncle who was an entrepreneur. And so I think it just was maybe something in the water um, that inspired me to think this way. I had businesses that I had run in high school and university. not maybe not snow shoveling businesses, maybe a little bit more advanced. I had a student window cleaning company that I had run throughout university, and I was able to pay and put myself through university. And
Amazing.
I just thought, like, this is so fun to have an experience where I could make my own money, not report to really anyone in any traditional sense,
Right.
make my own opportunity, and have my own independence. And for me, I just connected those dots, I think, early on as a kid. And
That's
getting into the
fascinating.
promotional products industry is kind of an entrepreneur's dream. Low
Yeah.
barriers to entry, massive amounts of creativity, a huge industry. Who doesn't use promotional products? And also lots of opportunities to innovate too. There's
Mhm.
plenty of parts of the industry that are fairly old school and which I think opened up an opportunity for someone like me in my background to get into this space and sort of paint on a broader canvas. So that's my entrepreneurial past.
I love that. But do you, and I probably jumped the gun a little, but you are clearly born with it. I was not. I used to say I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't have the stomach for it. I referenced that a minute ago. I'd like to think I learned how to be an entrepreneur, sometimes by my own initiative. Sometimes life taught me how to do that. Do you feel like it can be taught, or do you think it is something that, boy, it's just something you're born with?
I mean, there's two schools of thought. I think that there's some folks that will say it's born and others that that can be taught. I think for me, I'm a firm believer that anyone can do it. I struggle with the idea that it could be taught in school, like this notion of like entrepreneurship in university or college. Um, I think that the thinking behind that is valid, but I really believe that where entrepreneurship is really taught is just by doing it. And I know that that can come across as a bit glib and say, okay, well, really, what does that mean? But in a lot of respects, uh, how I have learned. So maybe I'll talk from my own experience, and I don't want to talk for others. That you learn how to be an entrepreneur by getting rejected by potential customers that are not ready or not willing to pay for your product. So that's one good example of that. Or it's stressing out about whether you're going to meet payroll, or it's going to be whether you can communicate your ideas effectively to the market and often getting rejected. It's going to a bank and asking for a loan, and then they ask you for a series of financial statements, and you're like, "What's that?" And then you put together something, and then they either laugh at you or they say, "Well, there might be some work that's required here." So those are just a small number of examples. And I think by doing it and by putting yourself out there into the market, the market is incredibly honest, can be a little cruel, can be very cruel. But the feedback loop and the learnings from that are invaluable. And what I think I always learned is that the businesses that I was involved with and certainly started in promo, and you'll notice the one word I mentioned there before was low barriers to entry. And to me, I think an entrepreneur getting into a space with low barriers to entry is an absolute gift because it doesn't mean you have to go in and like risk your house and all of your savings and all of this. You can take incremental small bets. And as you say, if you go out into the market and you experiment with something and it doesn't work and you lose, 10 grand, or I'm just making that number up, not the end of the world because it's an opportunity to learn, to get back out into the market and test your product and ideas again. And for me, I just, maybe I was just young and stupid and naive, but I enjoyed that feedback loop.
Well,
And
there's a
so I
certain
think that
amount of
that's how
that
you learn how to be an entrepreneur.
naivete. There's a certain amount of that naivety, and I can't say that just like I can't say the Dynamo bars or whatever weird bar that we have in
Naivete.
Canada. What is it?
Naivete.
Yes, naivete. I think
Maybe
there's
I pronounce
certain.
that like a Canadian. Naivete?
That's
Yeah,
okay.
anyways,
I
there you go.
can't pronounce it in American English, so we'll go with your pronunciation. But there's a certain beauty in that, and something you said really struck with me. I worded that question completely wrong because the question I had in my mind was, is it something that's innate or is it something that can be taught? It's not something that can be taught, I agree, but it's something that can be learned. And
Yes.
that's, I think, the big shift there.
I want to challenge you, Bill, because you've said it a couple of times on this podcast, and you've also said it in the past, just in our friendship in the past, that you're not an entrepreneur. You're not someone who was born that way. And I would disagree with that. Look at what you're doing right now. Look what you've done in many of your past ventures as you've moved out from working from a traditional boss. And just because you're not a company with 100 employees doesn't mean you're any less of an entrepreneur. And because you've gone out, you've put yourself out there, you've risked your own capital, you've launched ideas into the world, some of which have not been embraced and accepted. You've had people tell you your ideas are not good or your business model isn't great. Well, you don't cry about that. You take that feedback and you bring it back into the lab and you try again. So that's incredibly entrepreneurial. And I think that this was actually another one of your questions you had. The You think about the people in our industry, you've got people who are entrepreneurs, people like me that own their own businesses, but you've got this whole raft of people who don't own their businesses, but they work for businesses in the promotional products industry. I think the vast majority of those folks are very entrepreneurial as well because they take risks, they're very creative. They go through the same process that I've gone through. The only difference is that they don't own the business, but but they have agency and control over what it is they're bringing to their own companies, and that is incredibly valuable. We want to hire people who are entrepreneurial and thinking. Those risks and that independent thinking is incredibly important for a business like ours. So bring them on.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would say, yeah, for years I've said, look, I'm not an entrepreneur, or I'd say I was an accidental entrepreneur. I think
Nonsense.
these days I would wear the badge of solopreneur very proudly. I don't like boasting. I don't like lifting, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. But I am proud of what I've built with proud
Should
of
be.
what I've built with Josh Robinson promotions and things like that. And it's something I've learned about myself over the last 10 years. I love building things from just an idea on a napkin or a piece of paper to something that's tangible and exists. I absolutely, that's something that really fuels me and my creativity. One of the things you mentioned that I really, liked is I agree. The more entrepreneurial minded people in the workforce, the more creative the workforce is, the better the output because they will take risks in their work. They will, and risks are necessary to move things forward for innovation. I
Yep.
think you and I would both agree with that. I think I just draw a line of there's one thing having an employee who is very entrepreneurial minded and is willing to do the things it takes to in a business where they're being paid a salary, where they're not risking capital and things like that. That's one thing. It's having the stomach to say, I'm stepping outside of certainty, I'm stepping outside of security and laying it all on the line. Um, and so it's one of those things. If it's to be, it's up to me. And that's when I made that decision in 2020, in July, at the height of the pandemic. So it tells you what kind of intelligent person you're speaking to. But it was time. It was time for me to execute my vision and give it a go. And I know, like you have a family and a support system that is constantly lifting you up, constantly
Yep.
cheering you, also being a reality check. That's so I wear that badge of solopreneur very well. In fact, my talk in Vegas is absolutely 100% about building a brand as a solopreneur and how important that
Yep.
is to kind of taming the circus that can be being a solopreneur.
Yep, absolutely. And that's so important that that class of person, that profile in our industry, really important. It's what makes the industry so great.
Absolutely. It's the relationships always has been. You started off with Right Sleeve, great company, sold it, transitioned fully to commonsku because you ran both, they both had both for a while. What makes branded merchandise still so magical in a radically digital age in your mind?
Ooh, I love that question. Okay, so I can answer this question with two hats on. No promo pun intended. I should have my hat on. One perspective I have was as someone who sold promotional products. So with Right Sleeve, we started Right Sleeve in 2000. It was a creative promotional products agency, and we were working with companies that valued promotional products because of the emotional connection that they provided with their customers. And I love that. That was our thesis at Right Sleeve, was not to be selling the low end trinkets and trash side of the industry. It was to how to elevate the promotional products medium into branded merchandise for companies that were obsessed with their brands and really and also obsessed with their customers, and how promotional products was the basis of forming that emotional connection.
It's the vehicle.
Yeah, it is the vehicle. And that was always our sales pitch at Right Sleeve, was like, hey, there's all this other stuff, this kind of crappy stuff, and then there's the stuff that we can sell you. And it was design forward and strategic. We really got a chance to understand our customers' businesses, their marketing objectives, what success
Right.
looked like, and how we could weave promotional products and branded merchandise into that discussion. So that's one uh, hat that I wear. The other hat is we're an end client. So I'm not a distributor. So from a timing perspective, we started Right Sleeve in 2000. commonsku was started in 2011. We ran Right Sleeve and commonsku in tandem. They were separate companies, but Catherine and I owned both of them for 8 years and sold Right Sleeve to Genumark in
Okay.
2019. So since 2019, we have been exclusively an end client. Software company, sure, we're very aware of how the industry works, but at the end of the day, we're no different than a software client that any of the distributors in this industry would sell to.
Right.
And so that's the other hat that I have. We have used, and I think you've seen this, Bill, in our marketing, we have used promotional products, or I would call them branded merchandise, extensively in how we've built our brand and relationship with our customers. We've invested an enormous amount of attention and resources into this medium because we know it works. We know it works because we're an end client that is using this as a marketing vehicle to establish retention, uh, open new client doors for us, to create that emotional connection with our brand, which is incredibly important to the commonsku story.
Absolutely.
And it it's a magical medium. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that it's one thing to be someone who sells promo to other people, because at the end of the day, you're making money on it. You hope your client likes it, but then you go back to the next order. For us, we're actually investing and spending resources on this medium and it's working. And so I think that's such an amazing proof point, how we've almost come full circle to now using the products that we once sold to companies like our own and
Do you
seeing
think you
how
look
that
at,
drives tangible value.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry, do you think you look at branded merchandise now that you're more of a customer with a different eye? Do you think you look at it from a more discerning perspective?
Yeah, of course. Of course. We're super picky about this. Um, we we don't want products that are going to be thrown out. We don't want products that are going to make our brand look cheap. We don't want products that are misaligned with our target audience. Like these are all the things that we would have said at Right Sleeve, but probably didn't really fully understand. Like we would say these things to clients,
Sure.
but when we're not spending the money, we're not the ones that are using the products. You can be a little bit academic about it. But in this case, and you think about in your case, Bill, with with the companies you've created, including your current one, if you're going to order promotional products and it's going to have your brand on it, you want to make sure that it's generating a return because you've invested
Absolutely.
hard-earned dollars in that.
Right.
And so I'm going to look at the difference between a t-shirt A, t-shirt B, and t-shirt C to make sure it meets our quality expectations because we have to hand this out to customers. And if they throw it out, then what a waste of money. So of course we need to be discerning.
I can tell
Absolutely.
you, I can guarantee you you're successful because it was cold here in Tennessee a few days ago. And I mean Canadian cold. The low was
Wa-
8, the high was 15. So
Wow. Okay.
very
That's
cold.
cold.
And my winter jacket, my go-to winter jacket is a black common skew jacket I got maybe 5 years ago at a skew con in Vegas.
Yes.
And it's got the little thumb holes for your hands. Love it.
Yeah.
Still love that
I know
jacket.
the one you're talking about. Yeah. I still
I,
have that one too.
yeah, it's great. No, I love that because when we do the promotions pre-sale merch kits for before every cruise, we try to be very thoughtful to help. It's for the suppliers to showcase their merchandise. It's not really from promocations, but we try to help guide them like this is what we think would work very well out of your line, and people knock it out of the park consistently.
Yeah, no, you do a fantastic job with that. And I think the final thing I'll say here, Bill, is that our industry, I'm really proud to be in this industry, particularly now. And it's been 25 years. And I look at the people who are the prominent distributors and suppliers in this space now, and I compare them to when we were first starting, when Right Sleeve was starting as a creative promotional products agency, and we were kind of
Right.
weird at the time.
Right.
It to me feels like the standard in our space. I'm actually just going to pull. In preparation for this, I want to pull up a LinkedIn post from a mutual friend of ours, Joe Summer, who's the founder and CEO of Whitestone. Had this
Love Joe.
great LinkedIn post. Great LinkedIn post. Maybe we can link to it in the show notes
Yeah,
here.
I will.
And the image was two things: the power of bad merch. There's a picture
Mhm.
of a kind of a generic tote bag, like a safety blanket, a bunch of like random cups, t-shirts, some ugly hats, and the like. And then contrast that with an image that says the power of good merch. It's about connection, growth, and awareness. Sorry, the power of bad merch, I should say, was disconnection, destruction, and mistrust. And
Yep.
it's such a, I know that you saw the post as well, but
I
it
did.
sums up like everything that we experienced in our time as a distributor. And I love the fact you've got younger distributors that are now carrying that message, the Whitestones of the world, to the current buyer of promotional products. And that makes me so proud. So,
Me too. And I love that post because it reminded me of an experience I had. I was in Cabo, San Lucas for a promocations trip. We stayed extra so I could go to the Cabo Wabo Cantina, which is kind of like my personal Van Halen mecca because it's Sammy
yes.
Hagar's bar. Van Halen opened it. And before we even set foot in the bar, I spent almost $400 on merchandise because I'm like, I'm never coming back here. I doubt it. It's a touristy thing. I
Smart
got
man.
home or back to the hotel. The quality of the shirts were so bad. They were, typical of really bad promotional products. They were smaller than they should be. And it absolutely, in my mind, irrevocably damaged his brand, Sammy Hagar's
Yeah.
brand. Because I was
Crazy.
buying shirts at $35 and $40, concert shirt prices. These shirts were no more than $3, and if he had spent double that, six, they would have been great t-shirts. The quality would have been there. The screen print wouldn't have been
Yep.
off because they
Yep.
were off center and things like that.
Yeah.
Just craziness, and it really damaged the brand for me. And you're
Yeah.
talking a lifelong fan. So when
Yeah.
I saw Joe's post, I'm like, dead on, 1,000%, loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. What a missed opportunity for whoever, whatever distributor did that merch, right? What a
Yeah,
wasted opportunity. Um,
absolutely. You really have been an industry pioneer in terms of podcasting, speaking, and writing. How do you feel like the role of content creation has helped you be successful both in Right Sleeve, commonsku, and maybe even just the personal brand of Mark Graham?
I started my content journey in the industry around 2009, I think.
Yep.
And the story, uh, how I got into it was I was always fascinated by the education sessions at industry shows, ASI, PPAI, the PPPC here in Canada. I was always fascinated by the distributors who got up and shared stories about their success or taught other distributors or competitors in the room about something that they had learned in their business. And I always found that those sessions were the most powerful.
Yeah.
And I'd been in the industry for, a handful of years by that point. And I thought, why don't I put my hand up and do one of these education sessions? I've learned a lot from these other distributors, and now it's probably my time. Felt I had enough confidence, got rid of all the imposter syndrome, or at least you can't always get rid of that as an entrepreneur,
I'm
by the
about to
way. You
say,
always have it.
I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah.
It just, you say, you be quiet over there. I'm not listening
It-
today.
Exactly. So, I kind of shut that voice down, and I I'd been dabbling in the technology space at I shouldn't say dabbling. We were quite involved in it at Right Sleeve because we'd used technology to build our own business management platform at the time, and we were also really involved in the early stages of social media at Right Sleeve in terms of how it is that we were communicating and marketing and differentiating ourselves. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do a session on social media, early social media, right? And here's the key. I was like, I'm not going to do this in Toronto where I know all these people because I'm going to be terrified of speaking in front of my fear or speaking in front of my peers. So why don't I go as far away as possible from Toronto? No one's going to know me in Vegas. Um, and if I bomb, who cares? I
Right,
bomb, right? No one knows me at this point, right?
right.
And so I submit my application to speak at PPAI in 2009, talked about social media. And I'll tell you, it was probably one of the most transformative, put yourself out there, scary, terrifying moments, but
That would be great.
transformative for me because I was speaking in front of this like huge room. I thought three people were going to show up at my session. I had like 250 people, and I'm like, what the heck is happening here? I talk about my experiences building social media campaigns and at Right Sleeve. And was connected immediately after that session with all of these rabble rousers, creative fellow professionals in the industry. And it changed my entire trajectory in this space. And so all that's to say that that was my early step into content. And your question was really around like, why was content important? And it was important for that reason because it connected me with all of these like-minded folks that were doing equally, if not crazier things on social media. It allowed for a community to be built that was early stages of Promo Kitchen. There were many other people involved in Promo Kitchen, but that was one of the seeds that was sown there.
You absolutely were.
And and it was I think what it taught me, and it taught me at Right Sleeve, it taught me at Promo Kitchen, it certainly taught me with commonsku, is that content is a trust building bridge for your brand. And when you start off as a company, whether it's Right Sleeve when we were nobodies back in the day or commonsku when we were nobodies back in the day, it's all about building trust. And that's the only thing you really have as a company in those early days. You got a product, but people don't trust you. Like, and I trust this business. And content, and you've seen this many times with your business, Bill, is the trust building foundation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a podcast, whether it's written content with a blog, whether it's social media content, whether it's video, whatever the case may be, is a phenomenal way to build that relationship and build that trust bond with your customers. And we've leaned so far into that because it's so authentic to who we are. And it's become an unfair advantage, to be honest, because we speak from a voice of authenticity. So I think it's an amazing channel, but it's an amazing channel for people who get it. I think there's lots of people who do it wrong. They
Hmm.
see it as a
Agree.
selling thing, they spin. That's not quite the right way to do it in my experience, but everything I've seen with content since 2009 has all been based on that trust building, authenticity, and being transparent.
Yeah, I have based almost my entire content philosophy on what you guys done at commonsku, and many times not even realizing it. When I first started doing content, I did some speaking at Expo, and I was probably average at best around 2008, 2009. Took a few years off, and then I started writing a blog in 2014, a weekly blog. And I just thought, I have nothing to lose. I don't have a job right now. And I'm just going to put my
Yeah.
absolute honest thoughts out there, true transparency,
Entrepreneurial
true
thinking there, Bill.
authenticity. I'm sorry?
Entrepreneurial thinking right there.
It was. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Sorry, go
But
ahead.
no, it's fine. I love the conversation. It helped me find my own voice. In fact, that was the first piece of content. Once I figured out what I was doing, I created a whole session called Finding Your Voice. And it is being authentic. And I pride myself, like you, I think, whether I'm speaking in front of 250 people at Expo, or I'm on a podcast like this, or I'm at a networking event or at a bar after dinner, I'm the same person.
Yep. Yep.
I have the same thoughts. I'm not going to amp it up. I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm me because it's easy to be me. It's not hard. And I don't have to like amp it up and be some weird caricature of myself. And I think that authenticity plays through. And I see, like you, a lot of people who become like a weird, warped mirror image of themselves. It's certainly part of who they are, but it's not
Yeah.
really them. And I don't
Yep.
think that resonates when there's so much noise out there.
Yep. I totally agree.
Promo Kitchen, you mentioned. What's your proudest accomplishment from Promo Kitchen? I'll tell you mine. It's the mentorship program. I was a chef for 9 years. The mentorship program, I think, is still amazing.
Oh, you should be so proud of that. Yeah, the mentorship program is massive, and for folks listening that don't know it, it was one of the founding principles of Promo Kitchen, where we wanted to connect people that were new to the industry with people who had a little bit more experience in a really authentic way. Very, yeah, an authentic way is probably the right way to describe it, where those who had more experience were able to help those who had no idea what they were doing, brand new to the industry, or people who were had been in the industry for some time that wanted to get to that next level, and be able to tap the experience of someone who'd been there. And and I don't know how many matches there have been in
It's
the
got
mentorship
to be
program
well,
since we started, but my
it's got to
gosh,
be like
so powerful.
250 to 300 at this point. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
so, and I know you still mentor people through the program. I do as well. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
it's like luggage. You don't leave it.
Yeah, it's just so special, and I'm certainly very proud of that. And I think to reflect on your question, Bill, I would say the fact so Promo Kitchen was started in 2011. Um, it was a dream to build a nonprofit, independent organization that was rooted in education and mentorship. And like a lot of these pie in the sky ideas where people get together at a show and go, we should do this. How many of those fail after a year or a couple of years? And I think what I'm most proud of is that the organization continues to thrive and make a huge impact. And many of the original founders, potentially most of the original, or maybe even all of them, are not involved actively in the organization. I think about
Right.
yourself. I think about Kirby Hasseman. I think about Danny Rosen. I think about myself. I think about Bobby Leahy, Brad White.
Russ
The,
Mogel.
yeah, right, exactly. All of these folks that were involved in those early days when the organization had really no business being an organization, is now run by a new generation of leaders who are doing a phenomenal job. And I come to Expo, and the absolute non-negotiable event for me and now my team is the Expo. It's the same night, Monday
Yep.
of Education Day, and it is the party and event of the year, and it only gets better. And we are so proud to I am so proud to walk in there and go, man, look at this. And I love it when people ask me. I love this, by the way, Bill. I have many stories like this, even in my own business. When people are like, hey, what's your involvement in Promo Kitchen? Or how did you hear about Promo Kitchen? I love it when people ask me that question because I know that this organization is so much more than just Mark and Danny and Bobby and Russ and all these folks. It's about the current generation of leaders. That makes me so proud.
Yeah, I loved my time in Promo Kitchen. It's something I look back on. One of the proudest things I ever was just being part of that organization and helping with our good friend Bobby Five, Robert Five Ash, create the sous chef program to bring in new blood. That
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
brainchild of mine, and I'm happy to stand there and say I love that idea.
Yep.
Um, the
Amazing.
hardest thing though was leaving because I knew for me, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I felt like I kept having the same conversations. And I'm like, I have the same ideas that I always have. And I think it's time for a fresh perspective. And as much as I don't want to leave, I think it's time for new voices. And then you mentioned that the new generation of promo kitchen chefs, the Ashley Colettis, the Hallie Moores, and people who are doing really wonderful things. It's time for there's a time for everything. And for me, it was a time to like, it's got to turn over for it to be remain a vibrant organization. It does need to turn over, I think.
100%. I would say that my answer is a variation on yours. If I think if I look back and reflect on all the things that I've been involved in, nonprofit and my businesses, it's I'm a I think I'm the happiest and most effective as a builder, as the initial launch person. I
Okay.
love that early stages of building. I love the chaos. I love the creative energy that comes with that. It's a bit
And
messy at times.
the fear that comes with that,
Sorry?
fear that comes with that, I think that's kind of part of it too. It's dangerous.
Yeah, there's a danger there for sure. It could be stressful for sure because you're having debates and disagreements about what you're going to do with other people. And I tend to I think I think I recognize in myself that that early builder creative energy is where I think I'm most uniquely talented. And when things get to a scale and infrastructure and sort of next stage of things, you don't need a guy like me hanging around. I love still being involved as a mentor, as a casual advisor. That makes me really proud to be involved there. But in terms of like the scaffolding of the
Yeah.
next stage of the business, there's plenty of other people that are way more effective at that than me. And organizations die when the original founder is just kind of hanging on and micromanaging. Like you don't need that person around. So that yeah, that's how I would answer that and why it is that I moved on. And I moved on after like a 10, I think it was about 10 years in
Yeah.
Promo Kitchen. So it was a long run. But look at the talent we've got now in that organization. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing. It's a different skill set building as opposed to maintaining and looking for expansion.
Yep,
It takes a certain talent to build something. It takes a completely different set of skills to say the foundation here is great, but what if we add an expansion over there? What if we branch out into this? Things that
totally.
I think sometimes the original builders can't really picture because you had a specific vision, not you, but
Yep,
just the global you.
totally. Yep.
So you are, as I always say, Canadian nice. You are one of the nicest humans I've ever met. Sandy would tell you the same thing. And you work with your bride. You work with Catherine, who is absolutely lovely. How do you two navigate that while raising a family? Being so nice, you're so accepting of other people. You guys are always have smiles on your face. And I know you get pulled in 5,626 different directions when you're walking expo, but there's always a smile on both of your faces. How do you navigate, the separation of work and state, for lack of a better term?
I I'll say out of the gate that I never in a million years thought that I'd be working with my wife. Um, that that just was never anything that crossed my mind, didn't cross her mind. Uh, for folks that don't know, Catherine and I have been married since 2001. I started Right Sleeve prior to that. Right Sleeve was my business. Catherine was a management consultant, high powered in the corporate world, uh, exceptionally bright. I'm biased, of course, but she's just kind of a one in a million kind of person in terms of her intellect and business skills. And
She is.
so
I
was
will validate that.
uh, and all this is to say is that we were kind of set up where we were going to have two different paths. I was the promotional products entrepreneur building Right Sleeve, and she was the high-powered corporate executive. That was going to be where we were going to live our lives.
Yeah.
Things changed where, as Catherine started having our kids, realized that that world was incompatible with being a parent that was around for your kids and not on a plane every week. So she made the hard decision to move on from the corporate world, at which point Right Sleeve was starting to grow and scale. And I was like, hey, Catherine, you're pretty good at a lot of things. There's a few things here in this business that I'm not as good at. Maybe you could come in and help with some of these scaling issues and so, some of the operational side and some of the sales infrastructure and all that stuff. And then, like Hotel California, you get pulled in, and then all of a sudden, now look at us and look at
Wow.
her.
I love that.
So that is maybe a little history for folks that don't know the relationship in our past. And of course, Catherine, the two of us then went on to grow and build Right Sleeve. And then, of course, we then launched commonsku together as a partnership where she is the CEO and I'm president of the organization. So
Yeah.
the
So in
separation, sorry.
Yeah. Now I was gonna say, so in effect, you report to her, and I wonder what your annual reviews look like.
Oh my gosh, everyone who knows us knows the reporting dynamic, right? And I love that, right? Catherine is
Absolutely.
she's the boss. Absolutely, she's the boss. We have there's a Venn diagram. We come together in a ton of ways. People who don't know us very well might mischaracterize Catherine as, oh, Catherine's the serious business one, and oh, Mark is the creative, fun community one, right? And there's no question that those are dimensions of our personality,
Sure.
but those those circles overlap a considerable amount
Oh yeah.
where we come together and lead the business really effectively together. But but at the end of the day, she's certainly the boss, and we have a really close collaborative relationship. But man, I think your question, Bill, was, I mean,
How
it's
do you
all
turn it off at
consuming.
the end of the day? Where you're not,
You
is
don't.
it, or are we always talking about common skew, whether it's the dinner table or you're taking in the random Toronto Blue Jays game? I mean, is it all, I mean, are you able to shut it off?
It's hard to. It's hard to. I think if you were to ask our kids, they would probably say, "Yeah, mom and dad talk about business a lot." And and I
Which isn't
I
bad, by the way.
sorry.
That's not bad, by the way. I don't think that's a
I
bad thing.
I here's my take on it. And this is something I think I lifted from Catherine, but it's this idea of work-life balance, right? This may be kind of a broader part of your question. It's like, is there such a thing as work-life balance? And work-life balance might suggest, okay, you work a job 9 to 5, you put all your effort into that job, and at 5 o'clock, you're a different person. And I mean, I respect the philosophy around that, but that is not our world at all. And our world is more about like work life integration.
Yeah.
And we don't
Yeah.
turn it off because there's some kind of fire that's burning. We don't turn it off because it's really freaking exciting to be doing what we're doing. Like, yes, there are parts of running commonsku that are very frustrating,
Sure.
and they will want to make you like, yeah, they're just frustrating. But the vast majority of what we do is deeply exciting, is intellectually uh, exciting. They're riddles and problems that are like cool to talk about. And so why wouldn't you want to talk about that kind of stuff? So I think we have to be careful, maybe as parents, to, make sure that you are present for your kids and that you are a great parent and not talking about cash flows and
Right.
the next big client you're looking to land, right? Like that
Right.
gets a little tiring if you're a kid, but I would like to say that our kids have grown up in an environment where they've seen their parents work in jobs that are a little different from their friends' parents, what they do. But I think that they would say, man, our parents really love and are fired up about what they do. And it has given them a level of independence and freedom that we don't see with most of our other parents' friends. And I would hope that as they enter the workforce and do whatever they want to do, that they would carry some of those positives with them.
I love that answer. I absolutely don't believe in the concept of a work-life balance. I love what I do, so it's part of my life.
Yep.
The idea that there's this line of demarcation is, especially in an age where we can choose to, if we want to have access to our work emails and things like that 24/7. I don't. I
Yep.
I don't have email notifications on my phone. I check it probably 6 times a day, but I check
Yep.
it on my schedule. So
Yeah.
that's to me how you integrate a work and a life, that I'm not beholden to work, but it's part of my life and it's something I do find exciting. And even though Sandy doesn't work in the business, I will tell her
Yeah.
about things that I'm excited about, things that I'm looking forward to, things I'm in. And on the converse side, sometimes hey, I'm a little stressed here. I've got
Yeah.
maybe too many balls in the air. And
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
someone to bounce that off to who's not in my company
Oh, very
is
powerful.
very helpful. And so I was really
Yep.
curious about, you and
Yeah.
Catherine being in the same organization.
Yeah. We've made it work.
Clearly.
It's been great to work together. And I mean, Bill, you asked one other thing, and maybe I'll quickly say it because I think it's a really interesting question you asked about this idea of being nice, right?
Yeah,
And I would also say that you're equally nice. So I certainly don't think that this is like something that's unique to us. But I have learned, and I think I get this from my dad, who is like an incredible role model and mentor of mine in terms of how he's lived his life. He's not in the promotional products industry, but this idea of being nice to people is, I think, the ultimate currency in this world, right?
absolutely.
And it's about developing and maintaining relationships with people where you're respectful, where you're nice. That doesn't mean you can't be firm. It doesn't mean like we're
Right.
pushovers. I can tell you the number of times I had to like sharpen my elbows and sharpen the knives when
Sure.
speaking to suppliers when a project was going sideways. Like, yeah, there's another side of me. It's firm. I'll tell you that. But it was always rooted in a deep level of respect and how to be nice and how to win. And I've learned that from many other people who are way nicer and more intelligent than me. But you see in this world, or at least I've seen with some people, that if you're a jerk and you're out there to do battle where it's a zero sum, I mean, I'm sure there's some people who have done really well with that. It's
Yeah.
not in my nature, but I have seen, I really believe, I, I really believe the nice guy finishes first. I don't believe
Agreed.
nice guys finish last. I think at the end of the day, it's a long-term game we're playing here, and it's not a quick win. It's not a quick win approach. It
Yeah.
requires a lot of patience, but I think it's authentic. And this is a relationship-based business, and that that's that you need to be nice.
Yeah. I love that. I always say, and it's not my saying, people don't remember things and this and that. What they remember is how you made them feel. And I always try
Totally.
when I'm speaking with somebody to be invested in the conversation, to be nice, help people where I can. If someone asks me for help, it's very rarely a no unless I really can't do it.
Yeah.
Mark, I can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for taking the time before we say goodbye. I want to thank our sponsor. A huge thanks to our friends over at Bell Promo for sponsoring this fantastic conversation in the form of a podcast. When you're looking for the lowest minimums, deepest inventory, 5-star and A+ service, you can Bell Promo that. Mark, I cannot again thank you enough for your friendship, your guidance, your mentorship, and everything you do, not only for the industry, but for me. I appreciate you.
So fun, Bill. This has been so nice to have a conversation with you. I've really valued our relationship and friendship over the last, I think it's been 15 years, maybe even
15
longer, Bill. It
years.
was at Wrigley Field we first met.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Long
that
time.
ASI show where we were watching the baseball game from not from Wrigley Field. It was from like the place right beside
Rooftops
it.
across the street. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was
Well,
super fun.
we will have to do it again sometime, and I'll definitely see you in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for this. This has been so much fun.